Today I'm going to show you how to draw a concept scene of this hyena soldier. I kind of put the hyena creature into the bipedal and put him in sort of like a mech soldier suit, and add some tank to it so it looks like they are going to some kind of war. So I start off with a pretty flat layer, and I'm going to fast forward this one about time 2, so it's going to be pretty fast. And this speed painting I did in May. So I basically start off with flat. I'm trying to figure out the background first. It's going to be like a green field Havana. You look around for the reference for hyena, and then you look around for the area that they live in. So it's pretty much a bunch of tall grass. So I look around and I found like some tall grass field with pretty flat dirt area, and it has the color scheme is pretty much like a green and dirt color, or a little bit brownish orangey dirt. And now I'm trying to get a really quick background, which is kind of going to be a sketchy grassy texture. So I use a bunch of texture to try to get the feel. It's like I don't try to get, when I paint in this stage, I'm not trying to get every single glass blade, or I'm trying to get the overall feel of what a field of grass would look like a bunch of them together. So you can squint, look around for reference, and squint at the image, and then see how a group of grasses arrange, how the vegetation have like the value that are, some of them have like a really big area of shadow and a big area of light. So I'm pretty much looking for that. I'm trying to imitate that using like a big brush stroke. So I'm not concerned about trying to get every single grass blade at this point. If I have time, I might go into it. And now I'm just laying out, the light source is coming from the back, but it's a little bit to the right side. So as you can see, the trail of this lighter, almost white, is kind of like a beige, really light cream color on the ground. So that's where the light kind of coming through. So it's gonna hit the creature on your right hand side, or the right side of the screen. So you're gonna get the rim light from that side, and a little bit on his back, possibly. So now I'm just getting the silhouette of the creature, and once I get a silhouette of the creature, I'm just trying to get the general ideas of how the light would, how the shadow would fall on him. I'm trying to get the big form first. So I select the silhouette that I have, and I use soft brush to get the form around the image, or around the silhouette area of the creature. And now I'm going in and trying to get first off, it's a hyena, so I'm trying to get the facial feature, or the face to look like a hyena, and I'm trying to make him giving a creepy, evil smile a little bit. So I'm trying to get that look from his, when he's like turning around, look at us, and like having this scary smile, almost a laughing light, but I'm trying to make it look so that it's kind of scary and amusing at the same time, or creepy. And then I'm trying to make his arm longer, so because he's hunching over, so I'm trying to make this creature have a posture more like a gorilla, so that it looks a lot more like creature instead of walking just on his hind legs. So he kind of using his forefoot, or his arm or front legs, to kind of help him walking around, and mobilization. So he's like, because he's top heavy, so it's really hard. Like if you look at hyena structure, like the top part of it is really heavy. He has like thick neck, big head, and a really strong neck areas, because I think they have to use that a lot of bite and shaking to get the prey to come down. So he has like a top heavy, and then the bottom part of the hyena usually pretty small. So if I'm gonna make him walk on two legs, I'm gonna have to tweak with his form a lot, and I didn't want to alter the hyena form so much that it would change and look more like a humanoid. I wanted to keep his form as a hyena, like I want to keep the anima, the creature form, and but I'm gonna tweak him into like a more like a humanoid at the same time, but still have that wild look. So I decided to make him walk on the hind leg and a bit on the front leg also. So it's a bit weird. And now I'm just adding a really quick costume, because in the beginning when I was doing speed painting, I thought I was going to make him a gladiator sort of guy. So I just give him like a really basic strap on, like a bunch of leather strap on the arm, and leather strap on the tummy, and some kind of leather pad shoulder, and give him like a curved blade, so he looked more like a gladiator in the arena. So, but then later on, as you see the final result, I changed my mind and make him look a bit more like he would fit into a sci-fi, like a hyena commando. So, because I do a lot of fantasy theme in my concept, so sometimes I want to switch it up and change it into sci-fi, which is not that much different either. So now, I get this this whole basic form and the silhouette with just a little bit of shadow on the bottom, and just around the arm a little bit, and his face, trying to get. Now I'm adding a rim light, which is the light that's coming from, which you can see on the ground, and then if he has a shadow, the shadow going to be coming toward us, but via to the left of the screen, because the light is coming from the back right of the screen. So, and even if sometimes it depends on how strong the light is, you can still see, like, even though his body is covered by the shadow, but you can still see some detail within the shadow. If the overall light is strong enough, you can still see the detail on the shadow side. But if it's kind of dark, or if it's in the evening scene, this is like on the basically probably afternoon kind of sun, so you can still get to see a bit of the detail on the shadow side. But if it's in the evening, it will get a lot darker, and if the light source is not strong enough, you probably won't get to see any detail on the shadow side at all. So, and recently I've been playing around with lighting situation a lot, because it's kind of fun. And when you do environmental concept, or the key shot concept, then you're going to have to play around with the key light to make the scene a bit more interesting than just a straight on light or 3/4 light. Which straight on light and 3/4 light is very important in character design, because you're going to want to see the character detail and all that. But if you want to make a key shot or some sort of cinematic that you imagine, you just have to get the more interesting lighting, like what I'm doing right here. Just study a lot and try to make different light source, and then you will learn in the process. And the best thing you could do is just go outside and observe how light react with object. If you look at tree, the foliage, or a bunch of people walking dogs and birds, go outside and then make some sketch, or watercolor or anything. And then once you kind of observe that in the outside area, same as light drawing, when you look at things in real life and you observe things in a real situation, then when you look at the reference, you can manipulate your reference to look like however you want it. You can look at reference and you see how the object or the subject got lit in the reference, or when you take a photograph, you can choose the lighting situation in the outside, so that you can have a good reference, and you can bring that and tweak it and make your painting a bit better or more interesting than just regular lighting. So now I'm just kind of focused on the face and trying to get a bunch of his teeth and all his shoulder area. And one of his eyes, the subject on speed painting was actually a Scarface. So I'm just going to make one of his eyes blind with some kind of wound and have scar on it. But at this time I kind of forgot at the moment, but I'll make a scar later. And now he looked a bit creepy, looked like he was laughing and angry at the same time. That's what I was aiming for. And now I'm just trying to make his spot pattern. So this is pretty much a spot hyenas, and you can just Google it and take a look on Google and see what they look like. It's always in your best interest to, make your creature or make your animal, if it based on something in real, in wildlife or something, you probably will want to look at the reference so that you can get it as close as possible. But most of creature design, even though it look really weird and not worldly like, you can still look at the real world reference, and it's probably best that you use something from use some element that we're familiar with and making a creature so that your creature will look a lot more convincing. Like this could actually be walking around because it has like a similar bone structure. It's either you borrow the bone structure or some sort of structure like a head, shoulder, or feet, or scale, or anything. If you're making a dragon, you might borrow a bunch of element from each real animals and kind of put them together. And now I'm adding his cast shadow in the back, as you can see, and a bunch of texture, rock on the ground or something. So basically this one's already done pretty much, and it's approximately about 20 something minutes in, and the total time of the whole speed painting at this end of this video with just the hyena at the background with the basic lighting and his weapon and chain is about 30 minutes. So now I'm adding some metal part onto his shoulder, and I'm just gonna add some dodge onto his curve blade. I forgot what it's called in English. I'm just gonna call it curve blade. And now I'm adding a scar on his right eye. Just trying to get some red in there and trying to get the scar to look more like scar than a fresh wound, and then adding a little bit more scar onto the top head and his other side of his face, and more scar. He's probably a seasoned warrior or a seasoned commando soldier. So at this point, he's still like basically a gladiator kind of hyena creature, gladiator sort of things. But in the end, I kind of changed my mind and make his costume or outfit a little more fancy. So now I'm adding some dust particles onto the ground and giving it some depth. The closer is the darker the dust, and then the further away the fader the image. So anyways, here's hyenas. So that was my speed painting, and then usually I'll pick 1 or out of 10 or out of 5 of my speed painting, the one that I think I could bring it up and polish it a little bit more. Then like this one, I am making him a more futuristic soldier, adding some mecha element or some more modern element onto him. So I add his arm and add just the basic, just a flat silhouette on the costume on his arm and shoulder and torso, and down to a little bit onto his pelvis, and add his boot. So I'm just going to show you how I basically design the mech armor for him. I'm choosing black because it's in the shadow and it's easy. If I choose the lighter color, it's probably going to be tricky because this side is on the shadow, and I'm going to have to be a little bit more selective with the lighter color. So picking darker colors, it's a little bit safer, and also it make him look a bit more. It's fit his dot because he already have like a dark marking around his body. So I pick some other color, it might look a little off. So I thought, picking darker color would be the way to go, more like a commando kind of team. And this is, I just trying to make this armor look a bit more metal-like a modern metal. It's not like a medieval metal, so it's a little more polished. Like these metal were painted and have some kind of coat on it. So like when you design more medieval armor, you wouldn't have this kind of painted armor with some coat on it. So it's a bit, it's different when you painting those kind of armor, because it's have a different material onto it. So the more modernized armor would have a little bit more sheen to the surface rather than just a solid, kind of metal shiny. So now, and this is just a basic, just design it, the basic shape and basic general, and add some marking, maybe some yellow design onto the armor. And actually I changed some of the design later on, which you saw on some in the beginning of the video, but in general the shape are basically the same. But later on I feel like his glove or his gauntlet and his elbow pad look a bit more in between of medieval design or the fantasy design and sci-fi design. So it's kind of mixed. So I want to push it a little bit more to the sci-fi. So later on I change the design a little bit, because their design language, like how the line curve and the line would in a fantasy it would be a little bit more ornate, and in sci-fi I would think it's a little bit more angular. So, but that depends on what kind. So it's everything is in the context of whatever, how the architecture of the world that you design is. But yeah, I decided to change it a little bit later on, but it's still pretty similar. It's still got the same shape and the same form. I just changing slightly a bit, like I add a grenade onto his belt, and I add a bit more like his utility belt onto his back, because then he's like hunching over a lot. So it would make more sense if you have a utility belt on the back rather than the front. Like if on a human soldier you have utility belt on the side and on the front, but in this one he's hunching over, so it's probably a bit more make more sense to have it in the back. But then I would probably run into trouble if like how is he going to reach those pouch on his back. So that's maybe you don't have to, maybe you can have somebody help you pick it up. I don't know. Now that I think about it, it makes sense, but it doesn't. So we'll figure that out. Or his utility belt might be able to move. I don't know. But now I add some light, and when I add a little bit of glow or some light onto the armor, be aware that it cannot be as light as the light because it's still in the shadow. So when you add some lighter color onto that, be aware that it should not be too bright. So keep your value within the shadow range that you establish in the beginning. So be aware that not to paint over onto the shadow. I hope that makes sense. Now I'm adding his other arm, and this arm is gonna carry a machine gun and also have the same armor, glove armor. So I'm just trying to create basically shape. So basically when I start a painting, I would just be more thinking more about shape and how it would design onto shape rather than drawing line. But it's basically the same thing. It's just the difference is you drawing with line or with shape. So when you're drawing with shapes a lot faster, because you can just put the shape right there and just think about how the whole shape would form. But basically if you look at it carefully, I'm doing the same thing as drawing, but I'm just drawing with a thicker line and just creating the whole shape at the same time. Because like I think it's more like a thought process. You're already thinking shape rather than like when you think line, you get the thing, outline of the gun. But when you think of outline of the gun or outline of the machine gun, you might as well fill the whole outline with one flat color, and then you will probably have a silhouette. So tweaking your thinking a little bit, then you probably have an easier time trying to convert from a drawing mentality to a painting mentality. So that's a big difference. Like you're drawing a mentality, you thinking more in terms of how to use your tool and utilize the line to make your art work, or how to get the line to make form. But when you're painting, you have more liberty to use either big brush or small brush. So in terms of painting, you should be able to think shape rather than line, and then it will get you from point A to point C rather than point A to point B. So you skip a stage rather than if you're drawing and then you still have to fill in the blank. But when you just painting with shape, then you can just go from point A to the whole silhouette without having to draw. So anyway, so yeah, this is the dude with the armor, and then we're gonna go back to the whole image. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. There's more. So here's the final image with, I flip it back to this side and then move the commando hyena guy back a little bit and add a bit more hyena on like his commando team. And basically the shape of these armor are the same, shoulder kind of like the same. And on the torso I change a little bit. I add more grenades and his utility pouch belt and a bit more stuff, and then his boot, and then all this heel guards and the tank. So from there I got the guy from there. You should watch the video from there to here, and then how I get it to here, I'm gonna turn everything off basically. So there, the tank. So I basically that's the hyena I got, and then I add the other arm, then armor, and then armor design, then add more. That's the old design, and then I add more of the new design onto it. Just I make the big shape first, trying to get the whole form, and then once I have the whole big form, then I'll add more detail on top of the form, as you can see over there. And then I add another hyena, which is like a copy of this guy over there, and then I change him or make him different, repaint him to be more like this guy, and then I add more rim light onto him, and then you see these two hyena in the back, and then one more hyenas, and then I add his machine gun, and then his shadow, then add some grass texture, and then a tank. So there we go, the whole process of this team hyena commando concept.